In this video help, I'm going to be discussing the inventory screen. I'm going to start out by indicating that the sales invoice and the purchase order and the inventory screen are very similar in their appearance. The actual work area that you're adding information as far as the inventory is very similar to the invoice screen and the purchase screen. Now, one of the basic rules of using an application like this in a database is that it uses a inventory ID in this particular screen, a sales ID in the sales screen, and a purchase ID in the purchase screen. They all have a relationship in that this is the linking ID number for any portals or other information that is used to go back to this particular product. Now, in the inventory screen, there is one product per screen. Now the list view would show all the items in the inventory, where the individual items are shown in this area on this screen. There's a portal below this screen. This one is significantly different in that it is an invoice history. And in the invoice history, what this does is it takes every time an invoice is used where that line item in this inventory is used in the invoice as a sale, that information will be reflected over here onto the actual inventory screen and showing you every invoice where this item was sold. It also summarizes the quantity of items sold, the summary of the tax that was collected for this item, and the summary of all the dollars that were collected for that particular item. Now you have to understand that the difference between the cost and the actual delivered would include the sales tax. So these numbers, you would take the sales tax away from this number to get the quantity of the raw cost at the sale price for this item. Now there is, and I'm going to show up here that there are some information items up here that you need to know as far as the actual standard price. We'll talk about that in detail. But before we do that, I want to indicate that the record for the individual inventory item is assigned by a store. In this particular case, this drop down will show you that in this case a new database only has 2 stores. The 2-store situation now says that there's a web store and a fixed in-place actual store. So what happens with your inventory is if you have different entities like the web store where the inventory is separate from the actual physical store, and those web items are sold differently from a different invoicing standard, then that information is reflected in this particular product item. If you'll notice that since it has the nut tree store up here for this particular item, in this combo store where it combines all the information in the screen for which store it's available to, it describes the product by its product name, and then it indicates the actual store that has the inventory for this item. And the last item on there is the standard price for the item that it's sold for. This is also used in the invoice where the standard price is shown at the end of this tailing line of information when you do the drop down in the invoice. Like for example, when you click on it down here in the actual invoice screen, that would drop down and indicate where this item is and what store it's for. Now, I suggest if you're going to do multiple stores that you also put in the product ID, add a suffix on the end of the line that says in parens like store 1, store 2, or something that indicates which store is in there. And the reason for that, it'll speed up your selection of the items as you're picking them off the inventory screen within the sales data and also within the purchase. Because what's happening is that it differentiates this product ID and its inventory location by store from any other store so that you do not put something into an invoice from a different store if you have multiple physical locations around a city or other cities. That might require some further discussion with support if you have any questions about that, but it actually is that simple. When you're picking the item in the invoice, you have the store ID as far as in parens. In this case, the NT in this case would be nut tree, and NT would have been out here as nut tree as far as the product ID is concerned. Let's talk about the actual product itself. The ID number itself is a composite of information from the description of the item. In this particular case, the person using this this product in the store did not put the ID number in this particular invoice item as far as the inventory location. And I'm just going to do that just so you can see what it would look like if you had it in there, so that it would be proper to see. Now, if you change this, and I'm going to indicate this, if you change this information, once this item is in the inventory system, it's going to throw some curves to you. So you need to do this before you actually provide the information in the invoice or in the purchase order. You'll see how it disappeared. I'm just indicating what happened. If this was done properly and the NT was added first, then the item would actually be identified by the storage location. In this case, if you drop this down like you're looking at it in the drop-down list that would appear in the invoice or in the purchase order, you would see nut tree in this line. The user that set this up did not set it up correctly, and that's why I wanted to point it out. Now, if you back this out, now you'll see that the item will now return as far as in the list. It'll come back. I left an extra space in there, and now it comes back. So even spaces between things can affect the way that this is looked up. So I just want to pass that along. Now, let's next talk about standard price is something that is used as a set price. It's the actual purchase price plus your margin. And that's something that you would do based on the way you want to run your business as far as what margin you add per item. Now, the margin in this screen would be the difference between what the purchase price is from the vendor and the actual standard selling price. Okay, and you can see that when you're doing your purchase order because you're purchasing it at cost, not at price, and this is price. Okay, in this screen also you have a high and low level, which helps you to manage your on-hand level. And let's say, for example, we're going to put in 2 items for this particular high level, and the low level is 1. So what happens is as this item is inventoried and also purchased, you can see this information for the high and low level to know that you should not purchase more than 2, and you should never let it drop below 1 unless this is actually an item that you're closing out and you're going to be getting rid of it. Then you can change the low level to 0, and it won't flag it as a required purchase. In this case, this particular on hand is a negative number, and what it does is it changes it from white to red, indicating that there's a low level and it needs to have a purchased item for that particular low level. Down here in this field, nothing has ever been purchased for this, and this is another indicator that you can't sell something until you actually have a sum on hand. So a purchase order had to have been written, or the initial inventory, and the quantity received from the purchase order or in initial inventory that was done would put a quantity in this space. At the same time, it would change the on-hand quantity to the true number of items that are actually have been purchased. And then as items are used and sold down here, it'll deduct until it hits the low number. This number will be edited by the computer to reduce as items are sold down here until it gets down to 0. And then it'll flag red, or it'll actually be the low number. In this case, when it hits 1, it'll automatically indicate that you need to reorder this item. Okay, now that we've covered the items on the face screen, let's talk about something that's one of those Army, Swiss knife Army things that I was talking about as a Swiss Army knife. This is not necessary, but it was requested, and I thought it was a very good idea for the way that this system works. There's a category, and every item in the inventory system can be dropped into a category list. What that allows you to do is to see similar items that are in the system, may not be identical, but they're manufactured to do the same thing. For example, if you had a stroller in this particular case, and this is all these items are baby store items, then the drop-down list would show things for a baby type of store sales items, toys and whatever, and diapers and infant carriers and diaper bags and those kinds of things. So that's what this particular point of sale system was being developed to. And as I stated before, this is all initial data in here, so it does not have a lot of the things that would be added later. Now, why have a diaper bag or these separated? Well, let's show you. This little thing is called a popover, and what it allows you to do, if you have all your items indicated by a group category, then what happens when you click on this screen, this will give you all the items that are like items, all the diaper bags. So if you were going to make a choice where you're going to purchase an item, or somebody is going to buy one through the inventory system, you can see all the like items and their product identification. In other words, there's a diaper bag in blue, one for pink, and it could be any number of items, but they're all diaper bags for infants. And the way these are created is that when you are on the product ID screen for the item that you're actually working with, and you're adding the diaper bags all into the category summary here for diaper bags, on that screen where you're adding this, you would just copy and paste in the product ID and then copy and paste the product name, and it'll automatically add all the diaper bags into this list. And this is a scrolling list so that you can go ahead and run through these. If you clicked on this particular button here, it's going to come over and it's going to show you all the items that have been listed in the category list currently. And this list is alphabetic by the category itself, so you can see all the items that repeat or in this case you see two different diaper bags. This will also give you the indication of the items that are sequentially by the type of category that they are. So this acts like the master list for all the items that are in the system. And as I indicated before, this is a preliminary database and it's not completed yet, so a lot of the information is not added yet. Let's go back to the inventory again. And in the inventory screen, the next thing we're going to be covering is the purchase status. Now what this does is, as a purchase for this particular product is added on a purchase order, that information for that purchase order will be indicated on this line. It would give you the product code, it'll give you the vendor part number, the order quantity, the quantity received, the date received, and the total. Now this information is not added here, it's actually added in the purchase order and reflected over here. And as it was before, it'll show you the quantity of the items received for this individual product ID, and then the summary of cost for the items purchased. If you have any questions about that, you can go ahead and contact me. And as before, there is a icon at the end of the row where you can actually go see the purchase order where this information was derived from. The product information, more detail, if you want to create an additional set of information, the product category would go in this screen, the product type, the shelf life, the weight, the length, the cost of shipping. These are all pertinent items for the product itself. As far as if you have to ship the item like on a web store, it gives you those pieces of information where you don't have to physically go do it each time you want to send an item. Then you can also have vendor notes over here as far as the product is concerned, where the product information, additional data as far as shipping cost in maybe the zones for different vendors as far as shippers. You could have that information in here, or any other information and notes that you wanted to for this particular product. This would be a drop down to insert a picture of the actual item, and this can be done where you have an iPad where you can take a picture and then pop this into that particular item photo. And then there is a inventory UDF where the UDFs were similar to the customer, where you have a title field and the actual data field, where you can add as many different UDFs as you want in here for the particular product, where I did not give you a field that would be required for you to use if you needed it. In this particular case, I could say, for example, if this thing has any special limitations as far as storage life or whatever, or is it hazardous or whatever, you could put all that kind of information here, and vendor information if you want to, as far as vendor costs over time and those kind of things. So it's kind of like an open book. You can add as much information about the product on its history as you want to. Going back to the main data screen, there are other screens, like you can jump to the purchase screen from here. You can jump to the inventory by store report, and that basically indicates all the inventory locations based on the store location where you're actually storing it. This will give you a report of where all the products are at. Then it'll give you the inventory price lookup, and let's talk about that. The inventory price lookup is actually a subscreen for the inventory screen, and what this screen does is it gives you a couple of really interesting things. Now this is still the same data that was on the prior screen, but it allows you to add a barcode. The actual barcode would be the numeric barcode, or you can paste in the an actual barcode into this screen by clicking Insert Paste and taking a copy that you could take with your iPad and paste in the actual barcode. Now, what does that do for you? If you're using this system where you're going to use the barcode, you can have a copy of the barcode in the actual screen. And of course, the photo that you put in the last information screen would show up on here so you can see the physical item that you're working with. Now, this has the purchase status like it did on the last screen, but here's a new type of a thing. This actually brings up a web page. You need to have a web browser or a Wi-Fi Wi-Fi connection in order to use this screen. But if you have the actual physical barcode ID number, which is usually on the bottom of the barcode, you could take and put that barcode number in this field here and say go, and this will look it up on Amazon. What that would do for you is it would give you the actual item itself, and if you click it in there, it'll verify the barcode. It'll show you that the barcode is used. When it looks it up, it will look it up by that barcode number. If you look at any items, and let's just throw something in there, let's say a book, and look for books on sale. Now, as you'll notice on the information in there, you'll see that it actually actual sales price, the original retail price, the new price from Amazon, the used price, and a collectible, if it's a collectible. Now, this could be in any different case. This could be a guide for you to see what things are selling for in the market. If you have a POS type of business where the items are actually cost based on what you just throw in there and you don't really have an idea what the actual values and sales prices would be, you can obviously look in here over different items and see the actual retail, the price that Amazon is selling it for, and so forth. This gives you an indication of if you're selling the price or selling the product at a competitive price. So it's kind of important to understand that this is a very helpful item as far as pricing your items, especially if you're doing something where the item is not retail and maybe it's used. You can get into here and get a used price, but if it is retail, you can see what the actual retail price is selling at. And then if you're competing with people like Amazon, you can see what Amazon is currently selling that item for. So let's go back over to the data side. This pretty much completes the particular screen that we're talking about for inventory. If you have any questions or need answers, and by the way, I did not cover it up here. They do show the product code and the information as well up here when you're in this screen, so that if you need to copy the information, you can go in there. By the way, just to show you this, I'm just going to throw this in here just for kicks and just to see what happens, and see what happens when I do this. Now, it did not show it. No, actually, it didn't show it, but it came up with something new that is diaper bags. But you still can get a lot of information as far as costing of this item. So like I was saying, use the links to move around this app and go back. For example, if I want to go back to the inventory screen, I can do it from here, and or go back to the main screen as far as that's concerned. If you want to delete a record in the inventory, this will actually delete it. But as I stated before, you do not want to delete records because of the history. This is only in here because once the app is compiled, if I do need to be able to delete something for you, I need to have that in the screen so that I can delete the items for you. There are some times when people add information and by accident they make some mistakes, and we still need to have an inventory delete button in this particular screen. If you need any help, as usual, contact me through the support icon and on the support site. Thank you.